So first up, pack size. On this side here, we have the MLD Dual Mid XL, and its little brother here, the MLD Dual Mid. Size wise, there's quite a difference. The small Dual Mid comes in at about 350 millimeters, or just like 13.5 inches. Width wise, you're about 160 millimeters, or just over 6 inches, and you're about 4 inches thick there. It's loosely packed, and although this one seems so much bigger, you can see here there's a lot of room here, and there's a lot of room to compress it, so you do have the option of putting into a smaller stuff sack as well. But let's just kind of measure it with it kind of in its bag, the room it takes up in it. So you're about 360 millimeters long there. Width wise, you're about 200 to just over 230 mil, which is just about 9 inches. And thickness wise, you're about 160, 170 mil, which is sort of 6.5 inches. So they come in very small, and as I say, although the bigger one looks so much bigger, you can be able to stuff it in. But just for ease on the trail, I'll leave it in this bag because it's very easy to stuff in as well. So let's open the tent up and I'll show you exactly how long it takes to put up and how simple it is. So you can see it comes folded up. And the initial thing you want to do is just open it up. You can see it's very easy to see what the bottom is, and you're just looking for the door and the entrance you want. And once you've got that, it's just a case of flapping it out. And you just initially want to put the four corners out and just do it quite loosely. You don't want it too taut, so when you put the pole in the inside, you've got a bit of play and you can adjust it afterwards. So once you've got the four corners loosely pegged out, the next thing you want to do is get your trekking pole and fully extend it so it's ready to go. I just use a lightweight carbon fibre pole for this. You then open the zip up, take the top of your pole, not the spiky section. Then you have the little added section here that you just put into the spike of your pole. And put into the ground. After that, it's just a case of going round quickly. You can see it's literally took a minute to put it up. So if you're on the trail and it's pouring wet, it's 100 times quicker than a normal tent, and it means you can get your gear inside quickly and then concentrate on getting it there. But I'll just quickly finish it off. So you've got a little loop here at the front as well. And you can just start pulling the corners out here at this point. And with that, that's your tent up already. There's obviously guy lines which will cover in a little bit, I'll put up in a second, but you can see it's literally a 2-minute job to get your tent up and adjust it, and like even quicker to put it down. So it's one of the best aspects about this tent. But I'll get it set up fully and we'll come back and we'll take a look at the rest of the tent. So we'll quickly look at some of the features on the outside of the tent. As I mentioned on the setting up, it's very simple in the fact that you just put the 4 outside pegs in, your pole and a little extension pole, and that's you're weatherproof from that point on. You can put your rucksack, your backpack inside, but you then take a further 5 minutes, and what you can see is, if we look round it here, on the 2 sides here, you can see you've got 3 tent pegs there. There's one at the front there. You can stick a second one if you were in wild weather. 3 at this side, and you've got the same there. And you can see you've got the guy lines coming off the upper part of the tent. I've only got 3 or 4 of them on the tent. I've always found that's all I need there. But one of the advantages in high winds, you can see here, it's attached to a bungee cord which is fitted onto it. So in winds there's a bit of play on it. One of the other features here for ventilation, as you can see here, if I get the shadow out of the way, you've got the hood in here, which has got a gap with the insect net just in there, so that allows decent ventilation in there. And your top of the tent for the pole is reinforced, so it's absolute solid. So to get into the tent, which you always need to do because it helps, at the bottom of the tent, it's a simple buckle system. So you've got a couple of clasps there that just come together, and then you've got a waterproof zip on it. So it's very easy to open up here, you can see. So here's your little buckle here, and then it opens fully up and gives you that. So what that allows you to do is take one of the doors. I'll just set it up here. So just for ease of access, you can take your door, just roll the net up as it comes, and then you've got a little cord here, and there's a reinforced section with a few little loops here that you can stick it onto if I can get it. And that just keeps your door out the way, and then you've got easy access to the tent itself. So the section that actually keeps the tent up is your pole, and you can see here your handle goes into the reinforced section, your pole comes down, and then you've got a small extension that can just go into the ground. And I find that's usually enough, and that's all I use. But you do have the option of multiple setups. So if you wanted some extra strength and you didn't want a pole in the middle, you can actually put 2 poles, one coming forward, one coming back, but you'd have to get yourself an extra extension bit for it just so it's long enough. And you also have a little section, Velcro section with a loop on it, that allows you to join 2 poles together, and you just Velcro them up and tie them off with a little loop string there. And what that allows you to do is put the poles together and have the tent higher. So if you're out in summer and it's a bit hotter, that lets you raise it up so your net's just touching the ground and there's a good flow of ventilation in. Once you're inside the MLD or Mountain Laurel Designs Dual Mid XL, the bigger of the 2 tents, you can see you've got the option of setting it quite high so there's ventilation, and you've got the full net down there, which keeps the majority of the bugs and beasties out as well. And you've also got the option here with the other door. You can easily tie that back so you're fully open. Now what I like about both MLD tents, Mountain Laurel Design tents, is just now the way I've got to set up, you're just on the ground itself. Now there is a inner tent available for both tents, so you basically got the floor of the tent, and there's a insect net and it just attaches in here and doesn't take up the whole room of the tent. And you can stick a one-man one in if you want, so you've still got cooking area in front of it with it. So one of the options you've got as well here is when you're in the tent itself and you are wanting to cook, as I mentioned, you've got the option of putting an inner in here as well, so you've got a double sort of bug protection as well. Personally, I prefer having no inner and having all the space, and I tend to stay at the back side of the tent, and that allows me to cook and have my gear at the front. But you can see here, if I turn you around, one of the options you have here, you can see the door shut. Now at the bottom here, you can see there's a gap there, but you've got little popper studs there that can close this off totally. So you're keeping 90% of the bugs out here as well. And when you open the zip, it's recommended, just so there's not a strain on the zip itself. You can see the little buckle there. It's worth keeping that shut. But what that allows you to do is, if you get bad weather and you want a bit of ventilation and you don't want it all coming in, you can easily open it there, so there's some ventilation coming in there, but the weather staying out. So that's a great feature of it. Inside, there's not much to it. For storing your gear, when I've been hiking on trails, what I've tended to do is, if I've got wet socks, I tend to just use the strap and sort of pull them off there and just hang any wet socks or anything like that here. You've also got these little attachment points at the corners. You can see, obviously this is for keeping the door open at the front, but there's also little loops and little rings there. You can see if I come in, so it allows you to hang stuff off there if you want, and that's at all four corners there. You can see it comes in there, so you have got the option of hanging some kit in here, but it's very, very spacious. I'll just give you the dimensions of it in a second when I look them up. So dimensions of this MLD Dual Mid XL is, you've got a length of 2.8 metres and a width of 2.2 metres, and a maximum height you can take up is roughly 1.5 metres, and it comes in the Cuban fibre, the Dyneema Cuban fibre DCS, as they call it now, is 455 grams. So you can see it's very, very lightweight. Doesn't take up much room in your backpack when you're out hiking there. So it's a great tent for the weight and size and dimensions you've got with it. Some of the advantages you have on it is, unlike the sil nylon tents and your normal tents you would take out, if you get caught in a storm and it's raining all night, you're getting up in the morning and the fabric of the sil nylon is absolutely soaking wet, and you're having to stuff it in its bag, and you're carrying all that excess moisture and dampness with you, you know. With this one, the water doesn't penetrate into the fabric at all, so you just give it a good shake or wipe it down, it's back in its stuff sack, and it kind of retains very little moisture in it that way. Now this tent from Mountain Laurel Designs it's very expensive, but you do have the option of getting it made for you and sent to you in the sil nylon, which is obviously a little bit heavier, but it's a lot cheaper with it. And you can go onto mountainlaureldesigns.com and have a check of all the specifications on it, where you can look at the differences in weights and costs with it. But you're basically talking about, it's coming in here, if I look just now, cost wise, about $765 when you're getting it in the Cuban fibre, the DCF. And so that's about $260, $280 more than the sil nylon. So it's a huge difference, but it just depends. If you're out on trails all the time and you want to save weight and you want to keep space to a sort of minimum in your backpack as well, obviously if you can afford this, it's absolutely fantastic. It will just save you so much, take so much weight off your shoulders when you're out hiking. So, but again, it comes down to cost. And for international, this tent's obviously made, I think it's in Virginia in the USA with the company. You've got to keep in mind, if you're an international customer, that you're going to be getting all your VAT if you're in the UK, and import taxes and carriage fees and everything as well, so it can quickly mount up to above £1,000. So just keep that in mind when you're doing it. A good idea is just to sometimes keep an eye on the exchange rate with it, and if you see it sort of going advantageous to where you're based in the world and it's maybe over winter, you won't have as much time to wait, because this is Mountain Laurel Designs, a cottage industry company, so they take orders in and make them, so you can sometimes have to wait a month or two for your tent. So it's always an advantage sometimes to order it in winter time, and then it's ready for your start of the season. Get it in early if you can. Okay, so what we'll do now is put the little brother of the Dual Mid XL up and see how quickly it goes up as well, and you can get a side-by-side comparison of both tents. So same principle as before, you're just shaking the tent out and looking for the door side, and you face it whatever direction you want. And then it's just a case of, same as the big version, you're just loosely taking all four corners and remembering to loosely stake it out. You can see that just takes a few seconds. I'll just get the pole. Same as before, just open your pole to the maximum. One of the things I should have mentioned as well is you don't have to use your poles. You can order the carbon fibre poles from Mountain Laurel Designs, and they're specifically for these size tents. So you've got that option as well. And same as before, you're just putting the small extension pole in, and then you go around and just add your extra tent pegs. And adjust your corners. So at this point you can widen them. And just like before, you can see that just took a minute or two to put the tent up. And same as before, once you've got the four corners up and the pole in, you're absolutely sorted to get all your gear in, you're out to dry. So a lot quicker than normal tents. So exact same at the bottom, you've got the buckle system to help secure the zip, and you've got the poppers on the net and your zip. You've also got poppers above the zips as well that you can reach out from the inside and do up as well. And exact same on this system. This is an older tent, it's just a toggle, it goes through and then you can adjust it in and adjust your pole. So you can see, very simple system with it. It takes slightly longer if you've got the inner section to put up as well, but personally I've never ever used it. I keep it ultra light, keep the weight down as much as I can, and it's very quick to put up and put down again. So dimensions wise on this smaller, dual mid tent is your exact same length as the XL. You're 2.8 metres with it. On this, you're 1.72 metres, the width of it, rather than the 2.2 metres. So you're losing a bit that way with it. And height wise, you're talking about, if I just check this out, it's slightly smaller, as in a maximum height of 1.4 metres rather than the 1.5. And weight wise on the DCF is your 439 grams. So you're not saving tons and tons of weight. But if I was to pick one of these tents, it would really obviously depend on the situation you're going. I always maintain in my tent reviews that a 2-man tent is really a 1-man tent and a 3-man tent's a 2-man tent. So although they're both classed as 2-man tent, this one I would only ever use without the inner, like this, as a 1-man tent. The other one I would use as a 2-man tent. But what I find is, although there's not much size difference, if I was to buy one of these tents, I would just buy the dual mid. Now this dual mid is at the end of its life. It's well done now. It's about 16 years old and it's done dozens and dozens of trails, been to Canada. I've hiked Land's End to John O'Groats 60 nights in a row, over 1,200 miles. So it's well battered, and I'll show you the damage and some of the things that can happen with it. But what I found was the stuff sack size is so much smaller and it's so easy to put up and put down. It's very good in the weather, although you're seeing that both tents are just kept up with your hiking pole and then the small metal extension pole at the bottom. I've been in some decent storms in this when I was doing my Land's End to John O'Groats trip on coastlines and up mountains, and I never had any problem. The design of the tent, the way it's pyramid shaped, it's very narrow at the top and widens to the bottom. What tends to happen is the wind hits it and it just goes round it. So you're not actually getting the damage a normal tunnel tent or a kind of big geodesic one will do, where it's more like a sail. This, the wind tends to go by it. One of the downsides to both tents, if you're not used to it, is if you take your time and you've got it pitched, because of the material, once you get it pitched perfectly, it's almost like a drum skin. So if you're not used to it and the first time you get it and you get a heavy storm with heavy rain coming down, it's almost like the rain's like a drum. I'm totally used to it. It's never ever bothered me. If it did, you could easily put your earplugs in. It doesn't seem too different to a normal tent. People say it is. It's obviously louder, but you'll still get woke up if it's a heavy storm in an ordinary tent. So although it's a disadvantage, all the advantages, the weight, the size, the quickness of pitch, it's just night and day with an ordinary tent if you're ultralight backpacking. And at worst it lets you bring a couple of luxuries in the trail, but once you get into that ultralight thing, you tend to just minimise the sort of weight and size of everything you can. And it's the difference between taking 20 kilos in a trail and just taking 4 or 5 kilos. You arrive at your destination and you're totally fresh. So as I explained, I've used both of these tents multiple times on trails. This smaller one is about 15, 16 years old. The bigger one's 4 or 5 years old. And what's good about that is I can show you over the lifespan of a heavily used dual mid what will happen. So the first thing that happened on this tent was, failure wise, the zip eventually went and there's a lot of strain on it, but you have to use the buckle down at the bottom. But we were talking about, after, as I say, doing dozens and dozens of trails over like a week, 2 weeks, doing a 2-month hike Land's End to John O'Groats, taking it numerous canoe camping trips with it. So it definitely got its lifespan out of it. And although it's very expensive, I feel I got my money's worth out of it. And all I did was take it to a seamstress who put another zip on it so you could still use it. Downside was she only put a zip in the outside. So it was a bit tough. You were having to reach out to try and zip it down, but that's more my fault with it. Now, material is very robust. As I say, it's like a drum skin. and it's a laminated fabric. You can actually see it where it's almost like little squares glued together and laminated with it. They will wear thin, like just with constant rubbing and pulling them on the ground and stuffing it in your backpack as well. That's why I choose. A lot of people keep it out and just stick it into the backpack, but I put it into the stuff sack to save it. And just naturally over time, you'll get little tears in it. You just, you know, whether you camp beside a gorse bush or some thorns or thorn tree, you'll just naturally catch it that way. But one of the good things, if I show you here, I'll take you to some sections. So you can see down here, if I take the camera there and I come in close, you can see there's obviously been a tear here where I ripped it in some thorn bushes here, and it's right on the seam. But all you do is, I believe at the time they used to send you some spare carbon fibre, the DCF material, and it's a simple case, even if you're out in the trail, of just getting yourself some seam sealer if you've got it, or if you get a chance to go into a wee sort of camping store, get some, and you just put it on and laminate it back on, and it holds up, you know, absolutely brilliant. It's never ever leaked after it's done it, and I've got about 7-8 patches on this tent, and it's still totally waterproof with it, you know. And it's the exact same on this one here. You can see when I come in, you've got the net option there, and at the top here you've got the insect net. Now that's a replacement again. That was another section after about 10 years that eventually tore, and I just get someone to make me a new one with Velcro and you can stick it on, so no big deal. The reason I like this tent so much is you've got the ability, if I just show you here, you can have your pole slightly to the front and you've got enough room at 2.2 metres to lie out here fully. And then I'll just put the camera back up. You can see if you're lying out here, you've got all this area here. So even if it's raining, you can pull your zip down halfway, just open it up and loosen the cords at the side, and you've got lots of area to cook in. And one of the advantages I find of not having the inner tent in it and you're just on the ground is you can cook, and if you can pour your water out and it's just going into the ground, you're not worried about damaging the inner and you're saving all that weight for it. One of the things you've then got to make sure is you're using a close cell foam mat on it, so that if there's any thorns and you are bringing an air mattress, you've got a bit of protection. Or a lot of guys will use some Tyvek, one of the kind of building papers that just is ultra light but just gives you that bit of protection off the ground and stops your mat getting thorns through it. I tend to use the foam myself with it. But all in all, if I picked between the two tents, I would always go for this one, because what I find is, although you've got the same length here and you can easily sleep 2 people in here, you would be tighter with your backpacks and things with it as well. And you've got absolute tons of room in the other one. I just prefer this because it's a smaller footprint, so it's easier to find a wild camping spot when you're out in the trail. And although the other one just takes a couple of minutes, this is even quicker with it. And I find that although you've got more height in that and you've got more width on the other tent, what can happen is if the ground's uneven and you haven't got the full length of the pole with both poles joined together, which I find it's a fiddle, so I tend to just use the one pole with it and stick it in the middle slightly forward. I find sometimes that what you're gaining is actually the bottom of the tent's curving down and coming out. But again, that might be just operator error, the way I'm setting the tent up. I'm not taking it to its full height because I'm just using a single pole and the extension piece here. But definitely between the two, I would pick this one if you're a one man. If there's 2 you going out, I would get the XL. There is a smaller solo mid version available as well, and that's literally half the size of this, where you can lie in it and your door's just there, so cooking wise you're then outside the tent if it's raining. I find for the weight difference of a few grams, you're better with the dual mid. And there's a super mid version that comes in the DCF and the sil nylon, and it's absolutely massive. You've got to join the two poles together with it, but you definitely get 2-3 people and all your gear in it as well. But you can check that out yourself at the mountainlaureldesigns.com. And again, bought both of these tents with my own money. There's no sponsorship or asking to do a video with this. I'm just doing it myself. So what we'll do now is we'll quickly show you both tents, how quickly it is once you get up in the morning, you put your gear away, how quickly it is to put these tents away, which is definitely one of the best advantages of both these tents. They're just super quick, you'll see. As I say, it literally takes 2 seconds. That's all the pegs out, the pole down. And then to put it away, I tend to take it from the top, shake any moisture out of the tent itself with it. Then I just fold it over to roughly the length of that stuff sack. And as I fold it, I fold the material in as well, coming down. Then you're folding it in and then squashing it down. And then that's you with it away. With both these tents, it's still possible, but especially with this one, you can just, if it's really pouring it down, you can just ram it right into the stuff sack. It'll do the tent no damage, rather than folding it neatly like an ordinary tent. So you can see, literally, that was just 1 minute or so to take that tent down, and that's you away with it. What I'll do is I'll not even bother showing you the other one because it's exactly the same. It just takes a minute or two to put it away in its stuff sack. One of the things I will show you, it's worth purchasing when you get the tents. You have the option, or you can buy it from online from another retailer, is these little titanium pegs with they've got a little plastic kind of coating on top of them. And they're just, I don't know what they are, about 7-8 grams with it in weight. It's worth getting yourself kind of 8 or 10 of them. And again, I've been out for 60 nights in a row with this in wild weather, and never once have they ever failed. So it just keeps your weight down as well, and it's something to think about. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that short review of the mountainlaurelsdesign.com Dual Mid XL and Dual Mid ordinary one as well. If you enjoyed the review and help the channel out, give us a wee like. Be much appreciated if you could give us a subscribe as well and hit that button. And until next adventure, toodaloo.